Family, we back, Jack. Shout out to Drip said, I appreciate you guys for coming back and tuning in. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. That's all you got to do to support the channel. We on here with YouTube. We on here with Twitchy. I want to say thank you to everybody on Twitch who sent a sub today. You know what I'm saying, or whatever. We trying desperately to get back to that 1K so we can get to that 2K. So if you're on YouTube and you do not follow my Twitch, please go over there and follow my Twitch and help me reach my goal, dog. Now listen, we have been tuning in to the hearing of you know what I'm saying, London Thomas or whatever. Now a lot of you guys stay in Detroit and probably didn't hear about the story. It's sad because we stay in places and we don't hear about the things that matters. You know what I'm saying? And hopefully, you know what I mean, thank God to certain platforms all over the world, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, to keep us all in the loop when it comes down to things like this. Now, London Thomas was a 17-year-old girl who was dating a dude named Jalen, you know what I'm saying, or whatever. She was dropped off over at his house by her sister, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, only to vanish without a trace. Now, later on, they did end up finding her body, you know what I'm saying, and it said that the boyfriend and the mother is responsible. Not only are they responsible there, but there was a lot of naive people that was around who just seemed to me just didn't understand life. And we're talking about Christopher Wallace, who just got off the stand. That's not his real name, but we're talking about Biggie. You feel me? He just pissed me off. He really pissed me off. Now we're about to get into the next witness testimony. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody in the chat. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Look at Shaft. Shaft, calm down, bro. You know, I think that we should be able to see everything that they doodled. You know what I'm saying? After each day in court. I'm like really itching to know what the fuck she has on her notepad and you know, and what Jarvis be jotting down on his. I'm almost willing to bet you cash money they ain't saying shit. You know what I mean? It's probably arrows and rainbows and shit.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
Good afternoon. Could you please state your name?
Yes. My name is Special Agent Christopher Siegel.
And where do you work?
I work
He said Christopher Siegel, like the bird.
with the FBI.
And how long have you been an FBI?
Or like Steven Seagal, like that type of Siegel. Like I need this for real information purposes.
Special agent for?
Just shy of 18 years.
Did you work as a police officer for any other agencies prior to that, or just for the FBI?
Just the FBI.
All right. And did you, through your work in the FBI, become involved in the investigation into the missing person by the name of London Thomas?
I did.
And how did the FBI become involved in that investigation?
We were originally contacted by the Detroit Police Department Missing Persons Unit. They asked for assistance in locating one.
And so, you were assigned to help in that investigation?
I was.
Were there other investigators from the FBI who were also involved?
There were.
And your team or unit with the FBI, were you handling this investigation by yourselves, or were you working with other police agencies like the Detroit Police?
Yeah, that's right. We were supporting the local police agencies.
Okay, and you in particular, like what was your responsibility or job responsibilities in the course of that investigation?
So I was assigned as the lead investigator on the FBI side for that investigation. Like I said, we were originally contacted by the Detroit Police Department, also Eastern Police Department as well. And so we were assisting with them with locating London and providing resources.
Okay. And on February 8th of 2025, were you present during the execution of a search warrant at 27262 Carlisle Street in the city of Inkster?
I was.
And at that time, on February 8th, had London Thomas been found?
She had not, no.
Okay. And so, when that home was searched, were you present for that?
I was.
At that time, did you observe any cellular phones in the house that were later collected and placed on evidence?
I did.
Were any of those phones located in the basement of the house?
They were.
Describe what you saw, if you can remember, about where the phones were in the basement.
From what I can recall, they were located in, there was a corner in the basement that appeared to be a makeshift bedroom, if you will. There was a bed and a dresser, and phones were in that general area.
Okay. Now, while you were there on the 8th, did you have an opportunity to speak with somebody by the name of Jalen Pendergrass?
I did.
And do you see that person in court today?
I do.
You point to that person, describe what he's wearing?
He's over to my right and wearing a green jumpsuit.
For the record, the witness has identified the defendant. Now, this interview, where was it conducted at?
This was conducted right outside his home in my vehicle.
All right. Now, at the time you spoke with him, had the defendant been placed under arrest?
He had not.
Okay. Was he in handcuffs in the back of your car?
He was not.
Despite that, did you still go over what are known as his Miranda rights with him?
I did.
How did you do that?
I verbally read the rights to him verbatim.
Okay. And when you spoke with him, did he appear to know and understand English?
He did.
Okay. Did he appear to know and understand his constitutional rights?
He did.
Did he appear to be under the influence of any drugs or alcohol that were affecting his communication?
No.
Okay. And did you ask him, after you'd given him Miranda warnings, when he had last seen London Thomas?
I did.
What did he tell you?
He told me he had last seen her on the day she went missing, which was the 5th.
Okay. And did he say where he had last seen her at?
Yes, at his residence.
And where is that residence located?
This is the residence on Carlisle Street in Easter.
Okay. Now, did you ever ask him if, at the time on April 5th, whether he was currently dating London Thomas or whether he had any other girlfriends?
I did.
What was his response to that?
His response was that he was actually dating a different female named Nija.
So he told you he was no longer dating London Thomas?
It was unclear from my recollection. It was apparent that he was dating them simultaneously at some point.
Okay. So he told you that he had last seen London on April 5th at the Carlisle address?
That's correct.
What did he tell you about what happened when he saw her?
He said she had come over early in the morning. She said that a few weeks prior she had taken his phone. And so she had come back to the house in Carlisle to return the phone to him. He said it was early in the morning and that she was knocking loudly at the door.
And did he ever tell you whether he answered the door and whether London ever entered his home?
He did not. I asked him for those details, but he said he could not recall.
Okay. Did he ever say whether he called anyone else to come over to Carlisle Street when this occurred in the early morning?
Yes, I believe he said he called Charlotte.
Okay. This person you referred to as Charlotte, do you know what her relationship is to Jalen Pendergrass?
That would be Jalen's mother.
Okay. Do you see her in court today?
I do.
You point to that person, describe what she's wearing?
She's directly in front of me and also wearing a green jumpsuit.
Okay. For the record, he's identified Charlotte Pendergrass. So he said that he called Charlotte that night?
Correct.
Did he ever tell you whether Charlotte came over that night?
I don't recall.
No, hold on for a goddamn minute. Hold on, goddamn minute. The question is simple. Did Jalen tell you if his mother came over to the house that night? You can't recall? Hold on, this motherfucker, ain't he an FBI? Ain't he? Hold on. Let me make sure I'm not hearing the question wrong.
Correct.
Did he ever tell you whether Charlotte came over that night?
I don't recall.
If you were to look at something, could that refresh your memory?
That would.
Okay, approach her. You want to see?
I know you fucking lying.
Okay, does that refresh your memory about whether Mr. Jalen Pendergrass told you that his mother Charlotte had come to the house on Carlisle?
It does.
So what did he tell you about whether his mother had come to the Carlisle address?
He said that she did come to the address.
Okay, and did he say that did he give you any more details about what occurred when his mother came to the address?
He did not.
Okay. Did there come a point where he told you that he couldn't remember anything?
Yes.
Okay, describe how that happened.
Like I mentioned earlier, we got up to the point where London had arrived to the house. He had called Charlotte. Charlotte came over. I asked him for further details after that, and he stated that he couldn't remember. I believe he said specifically he couldn't remember because it was early in the morning.
And you're asking about events that had occurred 3 days prior to your conversation with him?
That's correct.
Did he ever tell you he had some sort of memory issues or any explanation for why he couldn't remember events
He did
72
not.
hours before?
He did not.
Okay. So I now want to go to April 10th. Were you at a home located at 49141 Paloma in Van Buren Township?
I was.
And was there a search warrant executed at the home at that time?
There was.
And that day, while you're at the Paloma address, did you speak with Charlotte Pendergrass?
I did.
Where did that conversation occur?
That occurred outside the home, also in my vehicle.
All right. Now, had Charlotte Pendergrass been placed under arrest when you talked to her?
She had not.
Had she been placed in handcuffs?
No.
Okay. Regardless of whether she was detained or arrested, did you go over her Miranda rights with her?
I did.
How did you do that?
I read them verbatim, and I also explained to her that she was not under arrest and free to leave.
Okay. And did she appear to know and communicate with you in English?
She did.
She appeared to be under the influence of any substances that were affecting her ability to communicate?
No.
And did she appear to you to understand her Miranda rights as you read them to her?
She did.
Okay. So did you ever ask Ms. Charlotte Pendergrass when she had last seen London Thomas?
I did.
What did she tell you about that?
She told me that she had last seen London also on April 5th at the residence on Carlisle.
All right. And what did she tell you about what happened when she saw London Thomas at Carlisle Street?
She said she didn't go into too many details about what happened in the house, but she said that London did leave on her own on foot.
Okay. Did she?
Okay, is this I'm all right? I'm having a problem understanding how these motherfuckers running their investigation. But this is just another way where I'm trying to tell you they don't give a fuck about black or brown kids regardless. This man, you know what I'm saying, didn't think to ask, like they didn't think to ask more questions. You know what I mean? Like you have a young lady to where there's proof that she was dropped off, all right? And you don't think to ask the mother, like, what type of interaction that they had? You know what I'm saying? It just seems like they doing half-ass whatever. They don't give a fuck.
Ever tell you anything about offering to give London Thomas a ride or how she was going to leave the house?
Yes, she said she offered to give London a ride, but London refused.
Okay. Now, did you ever ask her whether or not she knew where London Thomas was headed or where she was going when she left the house on foot?
I did, yes. She said she did not know.
Okay. Now, do you recall asking her whether or not London Thomas took her phone with her when she left?
Yes, I asked Charlotte that.
Okay, and do you recall what her response was?
She was not sure where the phone went, whether it was with London or somewhere else.
Okay. So, in the course of this conversation, did you ever ask her whether, after Miss Pendergrass had seen London leave on foot, whether she, I'm talking about Charlotte now, left the house on Carlisle?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So what did Charlotte Pendergrass tell you about leaving the house?
She said a while later, her and Jalen became concerned about London leaving alone on foot, and that they got into their car to head to London's mother's home to warn her that London had left.
And did she tell you that they did in fact go in the car and drive somewhere?
She did. She said they both got in the car and they started to drive to London's mother's home, but at some point during that trip they decided against it and turned around and came back to Carlisle.
Now, when you're having this conversation with her, were you aware of what call detail records were showing in terms of where London Thomas's phone may have been going and where Charlotte Pendergrass's and Jalen Pendergrass's phone may have shown at that time?
I was.
So did you confront her about any inconsistencies about the story that she told you?
I did.
And what was her response to that?
Her response was essentially that she didn't remember any details about that specific trip.
Did you ever ask her how it is that London Thomas's phone could be traveling in sync with her vehicle as it traveled away from Carlisle Street?
I did.
What was her response to that?
Her response initially was that Charlotte often left her car unlocked. So her theory was London may have left the phone in the car at some point. When we confronted some more, she said that maybe London was actually in the car for that trip.
Okay.
But she couldn't recall if London was actually in the car or not.
So she couldn't remember whether London was in the car she was occupying with her and her son Jalen?
That's correct.
Now, on April 26th of 2025, in the early evening hours, did you go to 23645 Millard Street in Southfield?
I did.
And why did you go to that address?
Earlier that day, I had received a call from an attorney of Jermaine Lynch stating that his client had received a plastic tote from Charlotte, and he was concerned about the contents of that tote, and he wanted law enforcement to check it out.
And so, did you and other law enforcement agents go to that address?
We did.
And when you got there, did you see any vehicles in or around that area that were of interest?
We did.
What vehicle did you see?
We specifically saw a white Ford Edge in the driveway.
And ultimately, were you present when that car was opened so that you could look inside the car?
I was.
And did you see anything in the trunk of the trunk area of that Ford Edge?
I did. I saw a large plastic tote that was duct taped closed.
Okay. And were you present when that tote was opened?
I was.
And when it was opened, what was inside the container?
The body of London.
Okay. Now, before...
That gotta be so fucking gut-wrenching to sit in that court and hear that. Damn. And she just had been sitting in the back of the car like it ain't shit. You know what I'm saying? In a tub. That a thickness, didn't even want to ask what was in there. That don't even make no sense to me.
Or I want to go back a second. When the car was opened, but before the container was opened, did you notice any odd odors or smells at that point, or no?
We did. As soon as the doors for the vehicle were opened, we collectively could we noticed the odor, but I recognized to be of a deceased person.
Okay. And when the container was opened, there was a body inside?
That's correct.
Thickum smelled it. You know what I'm saying? He definitely had to smell it. You know what I mean? He definitely had to. He ain't slow.
And did the person who was inside the container move or interact with you at all when the container was opened?
No.
Okay.
Damn, bro.
I'm
That's
gonna,
so good.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as People's Exhibit number 2. It contains 4 pictures. You can just look at these and let me know whether you recognize what's depicted in those photographs. You recognize that?
I did.
All right. Now, pages 1 and 2 are those pictures of the tote that was inside the trunk?
They are.
And pages 3 and 4 are those pictures of Miss London Thomas?
They are.
Okay. Now, as they're depicted here in these photographs, are those fair and accurate representations of how you personally observed these scenes when you were there in person?
They are.
Your Honor, at this point, people move to admit People's Exhibit 2.
Any objections?
No objection on behalf of the sheriff in the direction.
Mr. Clemens, any objections?
For exam purposes only, Your Honor.
Okay. People's 2, minutes, 4 photographs.
All right, so looking at page 2 of People's Exhibit 2, what is depicted in that photograph?
This is a picture of the tote with the duct tape wrapped around it.
All right, so the condition of the duct tape, that is as
I could see the pics too, Marcy. I'm over here. I'm hoping they don't put them big because one of the pictures I know for a fact I can't. I gotta make sure that I don't show because YouTube it boot me so far away from this damn thing. But I did too.
as you first saw it.
That's correct.
Okay. And now, looking at Exhibit 4,
Hold on.
in the condition where she was found, was she wearing clothing when she was found?
I believe she was wearing bottoms, but that's nothing on top.
Okay, so a pair of underwear and that's it?
That's correct.
And the tape that's around her wrist, or sorry, you said she was bound by her wrist?
Correct.
She bound by?
It appeared to be some sort of tape.
Okay. Your Honor, may I approach this to the court? So, while you were there, were there, I guess, evidence technicians or FBI personnel who were taking photographs and swabbing, using swabs to swab the outside of the container that you were able to see?
That's correct. We had called our the FBI evidence response team.
Okay. And just to be clear, I may have misspoken. Said
This baby was discarded just like it wasn't even shit. Oh, I wish I ain't see that. Yes, we're watching the London Thomas case. I wish I ain't see that, y'all. My heart breaks for their parents, for her family. That is just not what you want for nobody.
February, in terms of the time frame we're talking about. All my questions in terms of these events, the statements from the defendants and the recovery of the body, that all occurred in April of 2025, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Johnson?
It'll be very brief. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Agent, question for you. What time, when you were, you executed a search warrant on this location in Southfield, correct?
Correct.
What time was that search warrant executed, approximately? I don't need the exact moment. But
I'm gonna say probably around 5 in the evening.
5 in the evening?
Yeah.
Okay. Was Mr. Jermaine Lynch there when you executed the search warrant?
Initially, yes.
Okay. No further questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Clemens?
Hmm.
Thank you so much for your stuff. Additional witnesses?
No, I do have a couple of stipulations.
Very good.
Place on the record. First stipulation is that if Trooper Arthur Williams were to testify, he would testify that he took buccal swabs from both Charlotte Pendergrass and Jalen Pendergrass. And that was in April 30th of 2025.
No objection for exam purposes, Your Honor.
Any objection, Mr. Clement?
No, thank you.
All right, court will receive that stipulation.
The next stipulations are that if Kathleen Gill of the Michigan State
I feel so sorry for London Thomas' dad that's just sitting back there. Because he had to see all of these pictures of his baby girl, bro. Like, dead serious. And I just don't think that shit is cool at all, shawty. Like, I had one of the most... I had a very close relationship with my pops. I'm a daddy's girl. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever. And it's just certain things I don't think a father should ever have to do. He should never have to bury his child, period. But it's just something real special between fathers and daughters when it's done properly. You feel what I mean? And my heart just breaks for him, man, because, you know, you don't, first of all, you shouldn't have to bury your children. And then in doing so, you don't want these to be the circumstances. You know what I'm saying? It's just fucking horrible.
Police, as well as Sean Killian of the FBI, were to testify. They would testify that they took swabs of the exterior tote handles of the container that was containing Ms. Thomas's body.
Is that correct stipulation?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, it's received for exam purposes.
Your Honor, at this point I am moving to admit as People's Exhibit 3, a laboratory report, biological analysis conducted by Sarah Barr from the Michigan State Police Laboratory. Moving to admit that in evidence.
Any objection?
No objection for exam purposes only.
Any objection, Mr. Clemens?
No, thank you. I have it.
All right,
That's
very
what it said.
good. Court will receive the lab report.
And with that, Your Honor, I'm not planning on calling any more witnesses. I am seeking, I'll wait to argue, but I am seeking to add some additional charges. First degree murder, 750316A. Felony murder, 750316B. Unlawful imprisonment, 750349B. And I would move to modify count 2 and 3, which are conspiracy to commit tampering with evidence. I would ask that those be modified to just tampering with evidence involving a felony of more than 10 years. That's 750-483-86B. And with that, Your Honor, I would rest, and if there are no witnesses, I would make my argument.
All right, so just for the record, it's clear. Mr. Johnson, any witnesses that you plan to call on behalf of Ms. Pendergrass?
None on behalf of Mr. Pendergrass, thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Clemens, any witnesses you intend to call on behalf of Ms. Pendergrass?
I would just ask for a stipulation, Your Honor. If I could just have 1 minute just to show the council something. Let me show you this, exhibit report showing the-
Oh, yeah.
Damn, that's a tall ass white dude. That nigga came in the courtroom looking like RoboCop.
Stipulation, I believe the council would agree to it. I'll make it as plain as I can. Is that Jalen Pendergrass was arraigned in the Novi District Court on May the 4th, 2025, and placed on GPS tether house arrest restrictions. Those house arrest restrictions were not removed until July 17th, 2025.
Your Honor, he showed me a document, and that's an accurate reference to what the document says. Obviously, I don't know whether the document is accurate, but I will stipulate that that is what the document shows, and I have no reason to contest it.
We'll do that stipulation for exam purposes.
All right, Your Honor. So I'll talk about first-degree murder and felony murder first. There was testimony from Jayla Hatcher that London Thomas was brought over to the house on Carlisle Street, that when she was there, that they had a difficult time to getting into the location. Ultimately, Jalen Pendergrass called London's phone, and Jayla Hatcher answered the phone and was able to communicate with the defendant. He was asking whether or not it was London outside, and then ultimately London was let into the house. And we know that because Jayla Hatcher later saw a FaceTime video showing that London Thomas was in the basement of that house, which Jayla Hatcher was familiar with because she had previously been in the basement of the house. You also have the testimony that when she went to the house in Inkster the next day, that she was trying to communicate with Charlotte Pendergrass, that Charlotte Pendergrass basically told her, at least initially, I don't know anything about her, I don't know where where London is. And then ultimately, as the conversation went on, I believe she testified that Charlotte told her that Jayla left. Okay, so there's an acknowledgement from both defendants that London Thomas was in the house at some point that morning. Next, we have the testimony of Lenijah Wilkerson, testified that Jalen Pendergrass straight up told her that London was there, that she was knocking at the door, that she was let in the house, that ultimately they came down, that there was conversation about this phone that had been supposedly taken from Jalen Pendergrass, and that in the course, and also that Jalen called his mother to come over to the house on Carlisle, and that in the course of this interaction, London Thomas and Charlotte Pendergrass got into a physical altercation. That violent altercation ultimately led to a table being broken, and that the defendant, Jalen Pendergrass, admitted to her that he picked up a table leg and beat London Thomas with it. And that after this, and that while he was beating her, he was essentially asking her, what's your phone password? What's the password so I can look at your iPad? What's the password so I can look at your phone? I think clearly, just based on this testimony alone, one can draw a reasonable inference that Jalen Pendergrass was angry at London Thomas, that he was mad.
It looked like one of the uncles in the back. He over there looking at that old boy as he telling this story. Shawty, it look like he finna go over there and smack. Look how he looking over there at the table. I ain't bullshit. Zoom in on him. Like dead serious, because I don't blame. I'm over here getting so heated all over again. Oh, let's keep going.
About this phone being taken, that he may have been upset about these, this lying about a pregnancy, and that he was upset and angry at London Thomas. Then you also have the testimony that that Jalen told his mother, Lenijah, that his mother was part of this this altercation, this violent struggle. Then Ms. Wilkerson testified that afterwards, when Ms. Thomas asked to be let down, or asked to lie down, that Jalen essentially said, "I'm going to tie you up because I don't trust you." Afterwards, now that you've got a person who's, been beaten, she's now tied up inside the basement. Jalen supposedly asked his mother, what should I do? And the testimony was that Charlotte told Jalen, you got to get angry, you got to get mad. And that ultimately, she told Jalen to kill her. And that, according to Ms. Wilkerson's testimony, that's what Jalen admitted to doing, by putting a belt around her neck and choking her to death. Afterwards, Ms. Jalen told Lenijah Wilkerson that the two of them put Ms. Thomas inside a box, taped it up, and that Ms. Charlotte Pendergrass called a friend to take the container. Now, obviously, I'm sure defense counsel are going to say, well, you can't believe anything Ms. Wilkerson says, that this is just so far-fetched and unbelievable. What I would suggest is that her testimony is such that she knows certain facts and details. She was not present, and nobody's alleging that she was present. She knows certain facts and details about the circumstances of how London Thomas came there, what happened when they got inside, what the nature of what was going on, is such that that information could have only come from somebody who was present when it happened. And that lends her testimony credibility, Your Honor, when you're evaluating, well, what should I believe what she's saying? Then you have the other statement or admissions by Jalen Pendergrass that, referring to rap lyrics where I put her in the trunk and her family never see her again. Well, we know from the testimony of Jermaine Lynch that in fact the tote container, which contained the body of Miss Pendergrass, was inside the trunk of the car, and it's clear based on the nature of how that transfer was made that no, the family was never going to see her body again or see Lanijah again. So those lyrics, they may not mean, may not be completely overwhelming evidence, but those lyrics neatly match up with what the evidence and facts are in the case. Then you have the third version where
Yeah, I don't know if you could have seen. See, I could actually see the pictures really clear because I got a bigger screen on this other monitor to where I could see it big as well. You know what I mean? And yes, the tote that they had, the duct tape was going around that lid. So from what I could see, they did do that exactly. Because good and damn well, them lids be popping off real big. I got some in there right now. Lids fucked up like I don't know what. Look like that. You feel what I mean? So yeah, but they definitely had tape on it.
Jalen essentially blames his mother for what happened. Quite frankly, I find it hard to believe that he would simply go upstairs and just pretend like nothing was happening while his mother is fighting with a woman down in his basement. But in any event, that's another admission by Jalen Pendergrass that London Thomas was there, that there was an altercation, and that she never left that basement alive. When we talk about premeditation, right, the key testimony here is the testimony of Jalen, that where he tells Lanijah Wilkerson that after I tied her up, I went and I talked and I asked my mom what to do. Right? That is premeditation and deliberation. What should I do with this teenage girl that is in my basement, who's tied up? What am I supposed to do with her? And what his ultimate decision was, is I'm going to put a belt around her neck and choke her to death. So clearly, there's evidence of premeditation here. And also, if you look at their actions after the fact, right, the lengths they went to hide the body, to lie to investigators, to come up with some story about what happened to London Thomas, that is evidence of premeditation. Prior relationship of the parties, the defendant's actions before the killing, the circumstances of the killing itself, and the defendant's conduct after the homicide. People v. Anderson at 209 Mish Ave, 1995 case. That's all evidence that the court can use when you're deciding about whether or not there's sufficient evidence of premeditation and deliberation. Talking about felony murder now, well, obviously the same argument applies, except this time our argument is that the underlying felony is unlawful imprisonment. So if the court were to believe that an unlawful imprisonment occurred, then the court should also bind the defendant over on a count of felony murder. When we talk about unlawful imprisonment, first I have to prove that the defendant knowingly restrained another person. Well, we have the testimony of Ms. Wilkerson that the defendant admitted that he tied her up before she was strangled. We have the condition of Ms. Thomas when the container was opened, where she's got tape around her wrists. Right? If she's already dead by the time they put her in the container, why would you wrap tape around her wrists? Right? It doesn't make any sense unless you want to restrain her. Right? And even if we were to sit here and speculate, well, maybe he strangled her, but maybe she wasn't dead when she was put in the box. Right? If you put somebody in a box with tape around their wrist, and then you tape the box shut repeatedly so
Fact.
that the person inside can't get out.
Fact.
That's felony murder. That's unlawful imprisonment. Why? Because they knowingly restrained another person,
To where they can't move.
and that person was restrained to facilitate the commission of another felony. That is murder, right? Tying somebody up so that when I put them in a box and I tape it shut, they can't get out. When I talk about, so I do believe there's enough evidence for unlawful imprisonment. And the next count would be tampering with evidence. I would suggest to the court that a body is a piece of evidence that the police were investigating the disappearance of London Thomas. They were aware of that, but they did not tell the police, oh yes, actually, she's in a box, and I gave her to my friend, Jermaine Lynch. Here's where you can go find her. Yes, I did put her in a box. That's not what Charlotte Pendergrass did. Instead, they deliberately hid the body and lied to the police about the circumstances of her leaving the home in order to tamper with evidence and to hide evidence from the police. Now, if the question is, well, what does Jalen Pendergrass have to do with that? Well, the court has the DNA results which show that his DNA, there's a extremely strong, I don't remember the exact verbiage, but extremely strong likelihood that his DNA is on the tote handles of the container that contained the body of Miss Thomas. So, and you also have the statement of Charlotte Pendergrass, who essentially says, yes, Jalen and I went together in the car afterwards. So, that's my basis for seeking to amend these charges, Your Honor, and I will respond in rebuttal to
Definitely felony murder. Put them underneath the dirt.
Thank you, Your Honor. All right, this morning was one thing that, an interesting argument that the people made. However, their own evidence shows something different, which is Exhibit 1 that was admitted, the autopsy. The autopsy says nowhere in here whatsoever there's any injury to the decedent. There's no evidence that somebody was beaten with a leg of a table. There's no evidence that somebody was tied up with a belt or anything along those lines. So, Mr. Grazia wants you to believe a witness over scientific evidence that he's put in. This is a witness that has come forth and is basically, and I believe it was Mr. Clements that asked the question about their habit of getting high and all these other things. They did it all the time. I believe the witness stated that in order to get him to talk about things, he had to be high. We did X, Y, and Z. Again, I'm going to let Mr. Clements talk about the some other things that can't be true regarding the tether, but this court has got to take credibility of a witness into consideration. There's no way in the world that this witness could testify to somebody being beat with a table leg and the autopsy doesn't show it. Not even a scintilla of that. There's no way that this witness can testify that somebody put a belt around the decedent's neck and hung her. The autopsy doesn't show that. This is the evidence they put in. So what he's basically asking you to do, Your Honor, is just go off of what this young lady said, who, again, was high when she did this. There's other evidence, I believe, that Mr. Clements is going to talk about regarding the fact that some of this could not have even happened based upon location and everything else. But the autopsy itself basically does not support what he's saying. He knows this. This is what was put in because we were going to call the medical examiner, but we stipulated, obviously, to having this come forth, and it's completely contradictory. There's been no evidence to show that in the house in Inkster, he's put on no witnesses to show there was blood down there. He's put in no evidence to show there was a struggle down in that basement. None of it has come in. All he's saying is, Judge, believe the woman that gets high.
So explain how her body was in a tote. Explain why Charla, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, wanted everything. Why was everything so secretive? I'm not understanding what Butterscotch is talking about. Now you about to piss me off.
Again and again, and gets him high to get things out of him. It makes no sense, Your Honor. There's got to be some. I know this is a probable cause, or probable cause hearing, but there's got to be. The standard isn't that low. It's just not, Your Honor. It's contrary to what Mr. Grazi's saying, and he can't even refute it. And with that, I'd ask the court not to bind over on the amended charges as it relates to the other charges, Your Honor. I believe there are questions of fact, and I'll defer to the court.
Yes, Judge, I'll do my best not to be redundant and to cut to it. So, way back when my client was initially charged in this particular case, and we had an opportunity to have arguments on arraignment and things of that nature, there were some statements that were made both by the prosecution and by the defense. And at the particular time, one of the things that we said was that the decision or the emphasis should be on the evidence, not tied up into the emotions of what happened to essentially a child. This is an awful thing. But at the end of the day, the evidence is what should control how we move. And what we have in evidence, Judge, is a body that was recovered with an autopsy that was conducted and produced. And we have...
I'm going to be honest with you. I have to be in agreement in certain things. Yes, the hearsay evidence was okay, but see, that's circumstantial evidence. What we needed was to have a medical examiner to testify at this preliminary, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, to be able to prove that, in fact, you know what I'm saying, she had damage on her trachea, or was something shown that she was asphyxiated. You know what I'm saying? That she was choked to death, that she was strangled, that she had marks on her body. She had all of that type of stuff. So, I mean, when it comes down to proving certain cases, that is the truth. You know what I'm saying? I cannot believe they did not call the coroner. You know what I'm saying? That would have been the first thing that I did, because I need the coroner to come on there and say, listen, when I conducted the autopsy showed that this happened. There's bruising around her neck. There's bruising around this, and there's bruising around that. Because, see, it's going to be hard to be able to prove, you know what I'm saying, the charges that he's trying to put against him. This is what happened with Trayvon Martin. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we don't know how to be able to charge a perpetrator, and that is the shit that'll get them walking. You know what I'm saying? There was no way in the world that they could have charged George Zimmerman with first-degree murder, because they would have to be able to prove that he woke up that morning with intent to kill Trayvon Martin. So you have to go with second degree, which sometimes will carry the same goddamn punishment. But it's just the way that how you charge a person that makes all the goddamn difference. You know what I'm saying? So that's why that blows me, and we got to reach underneath. And right now, what they're saying is the truth. So now we might have a ruling that they don't have enough motherfucking preliminary evidence, you know what I'm saying, to you know what I'm saying, to proceed. But I doubt this would be the case. But I'm just telling you, that's how that should be working. So we got to be able to have all of this stuff together before we go to trial, man.
An injury diagram. And the injury diagram, if you focus in on the throat and neck, and you're thinking in your own experience, not just as a judge, but as a litigator as well. When someone says that they were strangled around the neck with a belt,
Facts.
What are the first things that we look for? Are there
ligature marks?
Are there bruising and scarring to the neck?
Yes.
Are there any injuries to the neck? Is the trachea crushed? Is the cause of death strangulation? No. Oh, well, the witness that I'm asking you to believe also says that the young lady was beaten severely or significantly, which she couldn't really qualify because she didn't give any details in terms of what was stated to her, with a table leg. Now, you had an opportunity to see some pictures of young Miss Thomas, so you know what her skin texture looks like. You know that she's a light-complected individual. Mm-hmm. So I want you to imagine how her body would react to being beaten with a table leg. Mm-hmm. And not to leave any bruising or scarring or any noticeable injuries on her body. But this is the government's theory. This is their evidence. And then you factor in that Ms. Wilkerson, charges had already been perfected, right? But now the government is essentially changing their entire theory, their charging base, based upon the testimony of Ms. Wilkerson, right? From her.
Yo, these dudes, I hate how, because sometimes little wording would work. I hate that he keeps saying the government. A lot of us is already very, very biased to the government. So we'll automatically vote to veto whatever the fuck they said. He should be able to say the prosecution, I don't like him saying that term. And I hope it don't go to trial and they use that term, because a lot of people, jurors, don't hear nothing else. They know the government. You know what I'm saying? Like, I hate that shit, but let's keep going.
Her testimony, you're to deviate from a second-degree murder charge that was initially levied and add charges of premeditated murder, add charges of unlawful imprisonment, and add charges that are felony murder that appreciate the entire context of the information that she provides, but just avoid the content that suggests that she's not being truthful or that she's just not a quality witness, like being extremely drunk and extremely high when this information is purportedly given to her, which would be a good explanation for why the information that she provides doesn't marry up with the scientific evidence. Remember, in that People versus King and People versus Anderson, which our focus is on preliminary examinations and what the examining magistrate or the examining judge is to do, is not to take your common sense at the door when assessing credibility. For Mr. Pendergrass to be able to beat London Thomas with a table leg and leave no marks on her body, for him to be able to strangle her with a belt and leave no marks on his neck, it's just something that's devoid of logic and reason. That's wholly unbelievable. That's incredible testimony. But what's more, and it almost blew me away, is when I asked her, I said, you're telling me that Mr. Pendergrass wasn't on tether? And she said, yes, when he got out of jail the second time, he was not on tether, but he was. Now, maybe Mr. DeGrazia and I can argue at another time, and I look forward to someone being able to tell me that in your own experience, just think about this, an individual's on house arrest, not able to leave, but they left the house and just started walking down Inkster Road, and that no one monitored that. That's what you're being asked to believe. That shouldn't be accepted at any standard of proof, even at a low standard of proof, from a credibility assessment. So I'm asking that you bind the matter over only on second-degree murder and deny the prosecutor's request to amend the complaint warrant. Thank you.
Well,
Hate to say it, but Teddy Pendergrass ate.
I guess I'll first respond to this issue about the chronology of the defendant's arrest. This case has a long history where the defendant was initially arrested, then he was released, then he was arrested in Oakland County for unrelated charges, then he was released on tether. So it's not difficult to believe that a layperson cannot keep the chronology of the defendant's different arrests by different jurisdictions and when he was held in custody. The fact that she's not exactly clear what exact day the defendant may have been on tether on, I don't think is dispositive testimony. Now, Mr. Johnson mentioned, well, there's no evidence of a blood or struggle inside the basement. Well, we have to remember that this murder likely occurred sometime between the hours of 5 a.m. and later that morning when the defendant left the house by her own admission. By the time the police get there, the Inkster police get there, they get there late or in the evening of April 5th. So they've had at least 12 hours to clean up that basement, to clean up the crime scene, and we know that they made efforts to hide evidence or destroy evidence because of what they did to hide Miss Thomas's body.
Fact.
It's no great surprise that if you're going to go to the length to hide a body, you're also going to try and clean up the crime scene so that police investigators won't find a bloody mess in a basement.
That's true.
Regarding the autopsy results,
True.
the court has seen the pictures, and it's clear that between April 5th, when we're alleging that the murder occurred, and April...
He just said something that stuck out to me. As much as I'm saying it, what he's saying is law. Now, when you have 12 hours to clean up a crime scene, you can do a pretty goddamn good job. You know what I'm saying, or whatever. Lil BC, what's up? Now imagine 30 days. Imagine a 30-day head start. Imagine the things that they was able to clean up. when it comes down to the Naziah Harris case. Imagine that. Not only 30 days, but let's also add just them dropping the ball. Oh, it's so crazy.
April 26th, when the body was found, that there had been significant decomposition to the decedent's body. It's written in the autopsy report. The court can look at the pictures. There's also the testimony of Agent Siegel that the odor was noticeable at that time. So there had been some serious decomposition. The condition of the body itself, folded up in a container in a bunched position, that is going to affect the condition of the body itself. So we don't know the exact circumstances of how badly was she beaten with a table leg, or where on her body the table leg may have occurred. We don't know what her body may have looked like on April 5th, and we don't know that because they went out of their way to hide evidence. But we do know that when the body was found, there's significant decomposition which has affected how her body looked and appeared at the time it was found.
True.
Now
it was roughly around April. Well, hold on. It was April when she went missing. So we're looking at April, May, June. We're looking at the middle of the summer when she was finally found. So that could definitely speed up decomp, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, and vice versa. So I can definitely understand what he's saying here too.
the cause of death was ruled as asphyxia. And that determination was made before there was any sort of knowledge that she may have been strangled by a belt.
Mm-hmm.
So we can draw a reasonable inference that even if she wasn't killed with a belt, the simple act of tying somebody up who is alive and putting them in a container and then taping it shut so they can't escape, that causes asphyxia. And that's why the medical examiner came with her conclusion. So even if we purely discount Jalen Pendergrass's testimony about how the murder occurred, both defendants are still responsible for her murder because they helped each other by tying up the victim, by restraining her, by putting her into a container and taping her up and leaving her to slowly suffocate to death.
For all that, no, baby girl could have still been alive. And after they did the whole taping and all of that type of shit, that could have been the reason why she could have died too as well. So this is a very, very strong closing for him.
So I think that even if the court were to discount the testimony of Ms. Wilkerson, there is still sufficient evidence on this record to bind the defendant over on the amended charges as I've suggested, and that's what I'm respectfully asking the court to do.
Judge, now just ask that we clarify that Mr. Pendergrass never gave any testimony. I believe that was the misspeak by counsel. Thank you.
Let's take just a short break to read the lab report and proxy protocol, and I will be right back out.
Thank you, Your Honor. All rise.
Which would be consistent with.
We only got a couple more minutes, y'all. We're wrapping up. I want to say shout out to everybody who stayed on here with me for a whole 6-hour stream. You know what I'm saying? Or whatever like this. We're finna get the judge's summations. And then we're going to go from there. Crazy.
The issue is on what? As the parties are aware, or at least the attorneys are aware, this is a preliminary examination where the court has determined whether there was sufficient probable cause that a crime was committed in the city of Inkster and that these two defendants committed it. Based upon the testimony that this court has heard today, the court does believe a crime was committed in the city of Inkster and these defendants committed it and are going to bind the defendant over. But the issue is on what? On what are we binding the defendants over? With regard to Ms. Charlotte Pendergrass, the court has heard testimony that from Mr. Lynch that he received a call from Ms. Pendergrass with regard to a tote, that he met with her, that he received this tote, that they had some meetings where conversations were had, both verbal and in writing, that she gave him instructions on how to dispose of, burn, and get rid of a tote, and that the tote was later opened and a body was recovered. court has had the opportunity to read the autopsy report with regard to the condition and state of London Thomas's body when she was seen by the Oakland County medical examiner. And I believe that the date of that autopsy was April 27th, 2025. The court has also had the opportunity to look at photographs with regard to the state of London's body at the time that the bin was opened. The autopsy that was submitted by the prosecution indicates on page 2 the decomposition changes are noted, including skin slippage, green-brown discoloration, bloating, and marbling. The court considered that to be consistent with the body that had been placed in a bin and was concealed for some time after the death. The court also had the opportunity to look at photographs, which are very graphic and do show trauma to the body. It is understandable to this court how a medical examiner wouldn't be able, or may be able to, I don't know, they didn't testify, but may or may not be able to testify to this type of bruising being as a result of decomposition, or if it was as a result of actual trauma and specific bleeding of the body. There would need to be more testing.
Yeah, the medical examiner not being called on the stand is blowing me. Like Detroit. The fuck?
Testimony on that. But just looking at the photograph, there's trauma to the body that would be consistent with injuries and a beating. When the court takes a look at the bin that was found, there's a lot of intentionality with regard to how this bin was concealed. There's lots of tape all over the top, the sides, wrapped around the bottom.
Facts.
It's clear to me that every effort was being made to conceal. Something. The court does not know if her death, as indicated by the autopsy, was as a result of asphyxiation. It could have been the asphyxiation that occurred at the residence, or as a result of being placed in a bin.
In the bin.
It's also interesting that.
Well, I should have been a goddamn investigator out this bitch, boy. I'm telling you. I'm sorry. I'm gonna get the perk.
The court that the tape that's used around her wrist is different from the tape that's used on the outside of the bin, indicating that it might have happened at a later or different time.
Facts.
Which would be consistent with testimony that was heard today. But with regard to the evidence in this case, and I agree with the people that the court can consider what happened before, during, and after. Testimony was made with regard to Ms. Charlotte Pendergrass, and several conversations were had with her regarding this incident, regarding whether she had contact with London, that she was clear on some facts, unclear on the other, but what she didn't do was ever say that she had a bin and took it someplace else. She was not contributing or assisting in any way with the recovery of this body, and led police in a different direction that prevented the finding of this bin. Knowing that everyone was looking for her, friends, family, police, she had information that she did not share.
Exactly.
And so the court is going to, as a result of the testimony, the evidence that was submitted by Ms. Charlotte Pendergrass over on the charges contained, on the charges requested to be added by the people specifically. The court is going to find the defendant over on first-degree murder, felony murder, and unlawful imprisonment, as well as tampering with evidence, based upon the testimony of Mr. Lynch, as well as the FBI agent who testified as a result of his conversations and interactions with Ms. Pendergrass. With regard to Mr. Jalen Pendergrass, the court is going to find him over as well on first-degree felony murder, as well as unlawful imprisonment and the tampering with evidence charges as requested by the people for the very similar reasons. Again, the autopsy protocol indicates that there was decomposition, that the body had been in that bin for some time. The photographs show trauma to the body that a jury could consider in terms of making their decision as to whether or not Ms. Wilkerson's testimony held credibility. this court does find that there was sufficient credibility from Ms. Wilkerson to consider her testimony. She admitted that she had spent most of her relationship with Mr. Pendergrass, and he was in an inebriated state, but that was consistent with how they dealt with their relationship. And so
That's a good point, because that's what the point I was gonna make too. You can't sit here and say that her testimony can't be trusted. You feel what I mean? Because she might have been under the influence when her and her boyfriend seems like all they do is be under the influence. So if you can't trust her testimony, then you couldn't trust his either. So I can understand what the judge is saying right there. And then that was another question. I mean, another thing that I was gonna say as well. Like, it makes no sense to me. You know what I mean? So we look like we're going to trial for sure. You know what I'm saying? When it comes down to London Thomas. Thank you, God. But listen, you guys, this is only halfway there. Now, as you know what I'm saying, we went through a preliminary here with Isaiah Harris as well, and we're just about to gear up for trial. You know what I'm saying, for February 23rd. You dig what I mean? So yeah. Y'all give me 1 second, and then I'm gonna do